Hi, my name is Adam, and I love watches. My passion for watches began in 2001 with the purchase of an Omega Seamaster. Since then, dozens of watches have entered and left my collection. Let me tell you about a few of them. You know, they're fancy watches and then they're fancy watches. Sometimes when you think about a fancy watch, you think of a Rolex President in all gold or platinum, or a really nice dress watch like a Lang & Son or an AP or something like that. That is certainly a fancy watch with a fancy price. Then you have your fancy sport watches or your fancy kind of casual watches. And that is kind of what I want to talk about today. It is one of my favorite watches and one of my newer watches in my collection. It is the Panerai 233. Now, this is a pretty spectacular watch. It is the Panerai Luminor 1950 8-day GMT. That is a mouthful, and it's a mouthful for a pretty spectacular watch. Now, Panerai is a great brand. I love Panerai. I love what they're doing. I think they're not quite kind of at the level that they were maybe 10 or even 5 years ago. Certainly the whole story and the background around truly how Sylvester Stallone made Panerai kind of who it is today from a brand. It is still one of the nicer brands in the Richemont stable, and it's a watch that I think really looks like nothing else. And certainly the heritage between Panerai and Rolex that goes back, way back, in manufacturing of cases and manufacturing of watches together is something I think that really helps make the brand that much more interesting. This watch is pretty cool. And from a Panerai standpoint, it scratches a lot of the itches of things that you want to see in a Panerai. From a dial standpoint, it's got what is called a sandwich dial. Panerais have two different types of dials generally. There's the sausage dial, which has the luminor or the luminescence that's actually painted on. And there's what are called sandwich dials, where there's an entire platter of the glowing material. And then there's another platter that has cutouts, die-cut cutouts for all the numbers and numerals and things like that, that is sandwiched on top so the luminor and the luminescence kind of comes through. I'm a big fan of the sandwich dial, and this one indeed has it. This is a 44 millimeter Panerai, so it's not one of the biggest, which get into the 45, 46 millimeter. It's also not one of the smallest, which are now, I actually have a 535 Panerai that's I think a 42 millimeter. So this is right there in the sweet spot at 44. It is an interesting Panerai in that it has their in-house movement, a 2002 movement. Interesting things about the 2002 movement are, first off, it's an 8-day movement, 8-day power reserve, and this one has what is called the shark tooth power reserve indicator right on the bottom. A shark tooth because it kind of moves right and left on that dial. Some of them you'll see actually have kind of more of a dial on the front. And then there's some that actually have the power reserve information on the back. This one has the shark tooth, and that was something that was important to me. So that is a significant one. This one also has the GMT, which I think is nice. It is a 12-hour GMT hand instead of a 24-hour GMT hand. So the bad news is you really kind of have to think whether it's AM or PM. But on this watch, you'll notice that it also has an AM/PM indicator. Because we're looking at this in London right now, it's about 5 o'clock here in Austin. In London, it's almost 11:05. You'll see that the AM/PM indicator is almost right at 12 o'clock on the sub-dial. But typically, that's going to either be on the AM or PM side. The AM/PM indicator is a 24-hour dial, but the actual GMT hand is a 12-hour hand. One of the good things about 12-hour hand GMT hands on Panerais is if you don't like the GMT hand, if you think it makes the dial face a little bit too cluttered, you can actually hide it underneath the hour. And it's built in a way and designed in a way that you cannot see the GMT hand when you do that. Pretty clever, Panerai, pretty clever. From a style standpoint, I mean, this is a Luminor. Luminors are going to have your crown protector over here, the trademarked device. Some people love them, some people hate them. I think they look nice. On some Panerais, they're brushed like they are on this one. Sometimes they're polished. They do a lot of different things with the crown protector. But it is one of those kind of design cues that when you see a Panerai on someone's hand or wrist across the room, you can see that if you couldn't notice the huge, big, very black type of face. Another interesting thing here about the 233 is it's got very tall crystal on the front. It is a bubble crystal, and I really like that. I think this gives it a really interesting look. When the light actually hits the dial too, it gives it a really interesting type of look, almost like Hesalite, a plastic sapphire that you'll see like on the original Omega Moon watch, where it kind of gives a nice little glow. Another one of the things that I really like about this watch. One other thing is that it has a beautiful, sapphire crystal, so you can actually see on the back kind of what the movement looks like. Now, there are 3 big plates there that pretty much prevent you from seeing anything interesting, but yet still you can see the craftsmanship, and you can see there is nothing to hide on this particular Panerai. Now, the lume, as on any Panerai, this thing's going to light up like a Christmas tree. Fantastic Luminor, or tritium in this case, lume. And as you can see, it looks absolutely fantastic at night. One of the things I do like is that they actually do lume the little shark tooth power indicator, so you can kind of see that at night too. Again, something they didn't have to do. Very, very cool. Features, I think I've kind of gone through the features of the watch. It has a GMT, it has an 8-day power reserve. One of the other interesting things is it has a 0 hatching crown. So when you pull the crown out, it actually resets the second hand to 0. So it makes it really easy for you to set it, to an official time or something like that. The brand I mentioned before, I think Panerai is doing a good job. I don't think they're quite where they were 5 or 10 years ago. I think one of the challenges they have that they've come out with so many limited editions, and they've come out with so many special editions of their watch that, again, there's just too many SKUs, too many different watches in the Panerai lineup. One thing I have noticed that is really interesting, though, is they are coming out with, even just in the past couple of weeks, some new kind of lines. They have some much more thinner watches. They've gone with some smaller dials. So they are trying some different things, and I give them that. Price. The Panerai 233 is not an inexpensive watch. This watch retailed for a little bit over $12,000. That is a whole heck of a lot for a Panerai. I didn't pay that, and I'd be surprised if anybody did, whether you get it actually at an authorized dealer or gray market or pre-owned like I did. You may notice in a lot of my videos, I buy a lot of watches pre-owned. I'm very particular about kind of how I buy pre-owned watches. I wanted to include everything, have a great provenance, and only deal with watch sellers that I know and trust. The old adage, buy the seller, not the watch, is certainly true here. Craftsmanship, fantastic. I will note that I have had a few other Panerais that have had issues. There have been issues with this actual movement, the 2002 movement. There are a few different permutations of it, and I have experienced some of those, and that is disappointing. I think it's part of any brand that is trying to go to their own in-house calibers and in-house movements. You're going to have inevitably those types of issues. But when you're dealing with the price points that we're dealing with here, you expect perfection. Another one of the interesting things about buying a pre-owned watch is that you kind of know if the watch works or not. But again, if you're buying a watch like this, you want to make sure you have documentation. You want to make sure that all the work is being done by Panerai. Again, with an in-house caliber, nobody else can really work on it. When you're dealing with an ETA, anybody can work on it, but the goodness of that is, well, gosh, almost any watchmaker worth his or her salt can fix one of those types of movements. Timelessness. Is this watch still going to look good on someone's wrist in 10 years, on 15 years? Yeah, I think so. I think this is a kind of a timeless watch. You know, they actually call this line of the Luminors the Luminor 1950, which is their heritage line, which is, again, slightly different size than the pure Luminor line. They do the same thing with the radiomirs as well. Packaging, well, all Panerai packaging is absolutely phenomenal. They have the Parawood box, then you have the black box, and you've got the velvet and everything on the side of that. And then, of course, you've got the what's called the triple box. You've got the cardboard box if your jeweler or your watch retailer is nice enough to give that to you. My watch came with a black strap, but again, one of the great things about Panerai's is that you can swap the straps, swap the buckles out very, very easily. Whether you want to go with actual Panerai straps and buckles or third party. One of the other interesting things about this watch and a couple of the other Luminors is this one has the quick adjustment straps. So there's actually a tool that comes in that you can actually push the tool in right there to the little hole that you see right there, and it makes it very easy. Within just a few seconds, you can pop the straps out and put a new one on it. So if you are someone who likes to wear a lot of different straps, this is the watch for you. Competition, I don't know who Panerai is really competing with right now. I think it is, certainly at a higher echelon, but from a style standpoint, it's really not a diving watch. This watch I think only goes down to like 100 millimeters, which again is more than I'm ever going to do, 330 feet, but it is not a diving watch per se. So Panerai is not a diving watch. It's more of a sports watch. It's a statement watch too, because I think people who wear it like what it stands for and like what it represents. And isn't that what every single watch brand kind of aspires and tries to do? Panerai 233, I think it's a wonderful watch. It is kind of one of the classic Panerais in that it, again, has a lot of those attributes that people are looking for. It's not an inexpensive Panerai, but it is a good one, and you can find them easily on the pre-owned market. So if it's something that you're interested in, definitely check out your watch retailers, but buy the seller as much as you buy the watch. I'm Adam. Hope you've enjoyed this. I'll see you next time.